What is up, everybody, and welcome back once again to the Don't Shoot Disc Golf podcast. I am your host once again, trying for the second time tonight to bring you this podcast. My name is Harry, coming to you live from my studio here in South Manchester, and apologies for any technical issues you may have experienced. Thank you to Disc Golf UK for sponsoring the podcast, and thank you to London Disc Golf Community for sponsoring the YouTube stream. And sorry for the issues we've been having with connection tonight, but it looks like right now we're good, live just on YouTube. So if you could send the link on to anybody who cannot find the show, I'd appreciate that. And still with me, thank you so much for your patience. Tonight's guest, Mr. Mark Oxer. Hello, Mark.
Hello. You can blame it on Canada if you want to for the bad connection. It's got a long way to travel.
I tell you what I'm going to blame it on. I'm going to blame it on the fact that right before the show I was bragging about how good my tech setup was and how I haven't had any issues in weeks and weeks. And I said touch wood, and I clearly failed to touch wood fast enough. That's what I'm going to blame it on. But in all honesty, I think the issue was on Facebook's side, because I'm just on YouTube now and I'm not dropping frames, so I don't know how that works, but yeah, we'll go with this, and
perfect.
We'll share the stream later. We'll share the recording later if we need to. So welcome back to the show, Mark. And for anyone who was not able to find us earlier, I think people are starting to filter into the YouTube stream now. So hello everybody, and yeah, for anyone who couldn't find us earlier, please give us a little introduction to who you are once again.
Yeah, so Mark Oxer, PDJ number 112340. I've just been playing the game for the past, I guess this will be my third or fourth season playing the sport. I picked it up. I'll back that up a little bit. So my PDJ number is a relatively new PDJ number. I first played, my first ever round of disc golf was in 2003. A friend of mine took me out to Kilcona Lakes here in Winnipeg, in Manitoba. I didn't play again until about 2013, when I was actually living in a small town in rural Alberta, and there was literally a 9-hole course across the street from me, like literally across the street from me. So I bought a couple discs, not fully aware of understanding flight numbers. I was like, oh yeah, 13 speed, that's what I want. That's exactly what I need, right? 6 glide, yeah, that's what I need. And then so I ended up buying an Innova Groove, was my first ever disc. Because I wanted a disc that would fly really far. Well, that was the poor disc choice on my part. So I didn't play a whole lot. I ended up just playing a little bit here and there, moved back to Manitoba, and incurred a massive knee injury. Wasn't able to participate in sport the way I would like to have continued to play in sport. I played college soccer in Canada, which I know is not football in England. I know it's not the same. I understand football at a reasonably high level. I've done national level coaching certifications here in Canada. I actually was a goalkeeper coach for the University of Worcester when I was at university studying there as well. And my dad grew up, he was a season ticket holder, still is a season ticket holder for Huddersfield Town since 1962. So I've watched and experienced a lot of football. So I understand that my level as a Canadian collegiate level player doesn't really translate over well to football in England, but for Canada, it was a decent level.
For sure, yeah.
But I wasn't able to participate keep playing at that level anymore because of the knee injury I incurred. And a friend of mine just said, hey, let's go play disc golf. And so I had my Innova Groove and a putter, and we went out and played, and I shot I think it was a plus 32 was my first round. And I was like, oh man, that was kind of fun. It was nice weather out. Let's see how we can do it again. And we just ended up, as people say, the bug kind of bit them. We just ended up playing day after day after day after day. And so it's just been kind of a really fun journey from that point on. And we can touch on some of the other pieces, but had an opportunity to attempt a Guinness record for the most disc golf courses played in a year, traveling around to 9 different countries in that past year to be able to do that. And just, it's been a really amazing opportunity to connect to a lot of different people through the sport, and just it's been really fun. And to be a player, but then also to be involved in some of the other aspects of the game as well. And so I'm glad to be able to be here and connect with you today on the show.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining. And like you briefly mentioned, you've got some UK roots, so you definitely feel at home on the show. So thank you for agreeing to come on.
Yeah, no problems. Yeah, my family grew up in Wakefield. I actually have a business partner who's from Yeovil, so I definitely have a lot of connections to England. Like I did a master's degree at the University of Worcester, and then a second degree at the University of Central Lancashire. So definitely have connections there.
For sure. So when you were at UCLan, were you in Preston or in Lancaster?
Preston.
Okay, so I went to university at the University of Lancaster. So
okay.
So to me, UCLan is like the second tier of Lancaster University, but only in a friendly way, but for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool. And like I said, we were talking just off stream when we were having some troubles, and you said you were looking forward to coming over to play in the UK at some point. So
yeah, I've had an opportunity to play in several European countries. So I've played in Netherlands, Belgium, France, Switzerland, Germany. I think those are the main ones that I've played in over in Europe, but I need to get to the island. So
yeah. Very good. Yeah, no, looking forward to it. You have to hit me up when you come over, and we'll
absolutely
get around and
absolutely.
But yeah, fantastic. So as everyone in the chat knows, we like to start the show off with an ad these days, an ad for the Don't Shoot charity auction, which is next week. You guys will be exclusively live on YouTube again for keep the chat in one place for buying things live in the chat. We've got some really cool things going on. We've got some first run Cast Blast. We've got some starter sets. We've got some pledges of things which are not physical items. So we've got some cool stuff in the auction. So come along next week, check it out, and we're going to raise £1,000 for charity. That's the goal. So if we can do that, I will have to eat some kind of chili pepper. I believe there's going to be. It's going to be, I think, 4 or 5 or 6 even guests coming on for short bursts. We're going to do some cool stuff. We're going to have some games to play with the guests. There's going to be a quiz, I believe. Lots going on, lots to organise still. But one of the discs that will be available is the one that you can see on screen right here, which is Thought Space Athletics Glow Mantra, I think, or Pathfinder, one of the two. But yeah, it's a really cool disc, and there's some cool stuff available, so come check it out. We were saying you're going to do some fundraising for charity as well one day, I believe, Mark.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, with the Guinness attempt that I did there for the world record, now looking back on it, I would have liked to have probably connected that to some sort of charity event, as I have done with some of the other events that I've done throughout my sporting career. I did a Barefoot for Bare Feet fundraiser when I was coaching collegiate soccer. We raised, I think, 50,000 pairs of shoes, or in that realm of 50,000 pairs of shoes, to send over to those who need when I was doing my collegiate coaching. So that was something. So again, it's amazing that you guys are able to do this. I'm connected to Eagles Wings Disc Golf, which is another program that works a lot with juniors and outreach type of programming. And so they work with programs to get disc to Africa and disc to South America, and it's really awesome to be able to do that in our home, the home province for me of Alberta at this time, where we've done a 2-for-1 sort of disc auction type deal, where we started with a collection of discs, and if you wanted a disc in that collection, you had to give 2 of your own to take 1 back. And so the collection just continues to grow because people give 2 to take 1, give 2 to take 1. And so there's opportunity if people are interested to as well. They can purchase discs from that collection of discs, and that funding has been going towards course development, but also into some of the programming and the things that we're doing in Alberta as well. And that's just been fascinatingly, I can't believe how well that's gone. So this is awesome.
That's a fantastic idea. I definitely think we'd love to do something like that over here in the UK. So maybe we can co-opt that idea at some point.
Absolutely. You got to get some more of those TSA stamp discs. TSA makes some incredibly beautiful stamp discs.
Yeah. So it's not a charity thing, but for a podcast fundraiser, we've got some MVP triple foil in the works this year. So
awesome.
So definitely, yeah. So the next thing we obviously have to talk about, being the UK's number one ish, not really anymore, but we don't like to talk about the other ones. Number one podcast, number one being first at least. No, the other podcasts are killing it, and it's great to see. But But yeah, being the primary UK disc golf news podcast, we have to do a little bit of UK disc golf news. And once again, not an awful lot's going on right now here in the UK. We're still technically under stay-at-home lockdown orders, which are due to end in a week and a half. So we're going to get a little bit of freedom. We're going to be back on the disc golf course in a week and a half's time. So we're all very much looking forward to that. But there's starting to be events announced and things being planned, and leagues are going to start up again. So yeah, starting to look positive with our daylight savings time starting in next week as well. So finally feels like the edge of winter's coming. How have the restrictions been over in Canada, Mark?
It's been not too bad. I mean, Canada's a very large country, and so it depends province to province. Like each province that we live in is bigger than the UK, right? The entirety of the UK. Wow. So Canada's a large country, and I mean, the province where I live now, the distance between sort of the top of the province and the bottom of the province is the equivalent between Amsterdam and Rome. So just to give you, that's just one province, and we have 12 of those, right? So just to give you the sort of the big picture of how big the country is. So each province has got sort of their own pieces that are happening. Some provinces are a little bit more strict, and others are a little bit more loose. But generally, as a whole, it's been lockdown. We've been able to get outside and play casual rounds, so we can go outside and play with a group of up to 5. For casual rounds. There's been no sanctioned rounds played as of yet. There's been some unsanctioned play that's happened. And there's been a lot of tournaments have posted their registration and sort of anticipating that similar thing in about a week and a half or so, that we'll be able to have more the restrictions lifted and be able to play. And that's kind of how it's been. I mean, I've had a little bit of a unique experience in that I've been able to travel during COVID because my wife and I have actually been working doing some medical projects with regards to COVID, and so we've actually traveled a fair bit, and the restrictions that we've had to go through have been a little bit different with regards to that. But as a whole, it's been pretty good being able to get out and play, and like I said, it's a beautiful. The blue sky, as far as you can see today. The courses are going to be full of people just playing in their cohorts of 4 to 5 people and playing that way. So
nice. No, that's good. And yeah, it's been the same here for much of last year. Since the start of this year, we've been in a very strict lockdown because our numbers got really bad again. But yeah, things are on the up, and we'll be out playing soon, which is really great to see. There was a bit of a UK disc golf news drama this week. With so Bedworth Disc Golf Club, very proactive club, really well run, and they announced two out of lockdown tournaments, which is fantastic. We're going to be able to get back on the course and compete. But when they were announced, they weren't announced as being sanctioned by the BDGA, which is our national association, and events that are sanctioned by the BDGA attract tour points, which for us is a big deal because they're the only way to qualify for our big championship finale at the end of the year. And with tournaments expected to be hotly contested this year for entry, we're getting a lot of new players wanting to play tournaments. The decision was made to retroactively sanction the tournaments after registration as being part of the tour points. And quite a few people were a bit upset about that because they said that they would have liked to try and register for the event if they'd have known it was attracting tour points. So there's been a bit of a debate this year about whether that's whether we got to a point in the UK where we can't retroactively after registration but before the event assign points, or whether what's fair, and whether local club events, which is what this is, should be able to be on the tour or not. And there's been a bit of a backward and forward, and it's something that I don't really have a very strong opinion on. I think it could. I see both sides. I see people who haven't made it being upset, the people who are going being pleased that they're getting the points for the tournament. It's one of those issues where no one's ever going to be not everyone's going to be happy whatever is decided, but it's cool to see the tour has begun, to say the least.
So with the influx of new players coming in, how are you guys dealing with for us, the reason I'm asking is for us, events are filling up within minutes. So we're getting these I have for myself, there's a registration that starts tomorrow at 6 a.m. and I've got my alarm set for 5:45 so I can make sure that I get up and everything is pre-filled out so that as soon as it goes live, I can click register. And I know that other people are doing it because these events are filling so quickly. How are you dealing with being able to fulfill that sort of desire, the supply and demand of people wanting to participate in events with all the new players, and the need for tournament directors to be able to run those events?
Yeah, it's going to be a harsh learning curve this year for a lot of people, I would think, because this is going to be the first year we've had that. It was like that a little bit at the end of last year. We had a few events run, but people were still trying to stay local and not traveling too much, so it wasn't really a big deal. But yeah, these events fill very fast, and I think what the clubs have been doing, which is quite nice, is the local club have been opening registration to their club members first. So that's all in the spirit of staying local as well. So if local club members can fill the tournament places, then I can't imagine anybody can really be too upset about that. And then what the Bedworth Club have been doing is allocating their places into kind of a lottery. So anybody who wants to register has 2 days to register, and then the places are assigned not first come first serve, but in a lottery style, which kind of makes sense. It's quite fair. Another few, there will be some tournaments that fill first come first serve for sure. There might be some phased registration ones later. We've got a few events, which is really lovely to see, where female entries are being prioritized. There's a massive drive in the UK right now to encourage female participation in the UK, and we're having a women's global event where we've managed to reach I think nearly 40 women signed up to play, which is crazy for the UK. And also we've got this bag tag league going on for the women as well, so that's really great to see. We've got a question actually on that in the chat for you, Mark. And Carol wants to know, what is the women's participation like in Canada?
It's not as high as I would like it to be, or I'm sure as that others would like it to be. We're following the same initiative. So we have a sort of a 3-tiered system that a lot of events are going to right now, with having women and juniors be able to register first, then club members, and then open to the general population. So that's what a lot of the events are looking like right now, to try to increase that. We do have a few women's global events happening this year, and our participation is up with those. I actually had a call with a female world champion, multi-time world champion yesterday, actually. And it was interesting because in getting to talk with her, she said one of the biggest things that was a deterrent for her, and this came through in my campaign as a PDJ board member last year, was bathrooms on courses. And she actually said that she stopped playing in some of the premier events to make a statement to say, you need to be able to address this. And so I think if we want to have more female and youth participating, those are some of the things that we need to do to facilitate that happening, in addition to pre-registration, in addition to women's global events, in addition to several of the other pieces that are happening. But the sport is growing from that aspect here in Canada. But I think I think the growth could still be accelerated more than what it is, but it's definitely growing. But it's still quite a distance behind where the other population groups are for participants in the sport.
Definitely, and yeah, it's really great to see, and I think it's cool. Some of the stuff that you're talking about is definitely applicable here as well. So I hope some tournament directors here were listening, and we can get proper bathrooms at the events that can, especially the ones that can afford to be able to buy that sort of thing in, especially the B tiers. I think. My personal opinion is that any event that can afford to do the added cash requirements for a B tier can afford to rent a Portaloo or whatever to facilitate some women being able to play. So I'd prefer them spend the cash on that than on the prize money for a B tier, to be completely honest.
So with that, in playing in Europe, majority of and in England, the majority of or the UK, I'm not just gonna say England, but in the UK, the majority of the courses are in multi-use park spaces.
Correct.
How are those spaces for bathrooms already? Because it's a multi-use park space, does some of them already have facilities available? And then I know that we have 2, when I think of it here where I'm currently located, we have 2 courses that are multi-use park spaces. They have really actually nice bathrooms, but they're locked because of COVID, and so people can't go into them right now. And so it's like, oh my gosh! And so even renting like a porta bathroom is a bit of a problem right now because of the COVID things. And how would you mitigate that? And so it's just, I mean, I'm not trying to cause more problems. It's just something to think about and how to deal with that, right? So
Definitely, yeah. And I think there are courses here that are in parks that do have facilities, but often the facilities aren't convenient for disc golfers. There might be a 10-minute walk from the actual place where the course is, which can be a bit awkward because you can't sort of just pop there during the round, or you have to kind of plan it. And I think something that we're definitely learning and dealing with. Really, quite kind of sad to say, but I think until sort of this year, last year, the most women I have ever seen on a PDGA registration was like 2 or 3. So it's really just. Obviously, it's always been an issue, but it's never been one that had been brought to sort of public perception. Whereas with the number of women we're seeing join the sport now, it's fantastic to see. Especially the Ultimate community have been great coming over, and in Ultimate the gender split seems to be much closer to 50-50 than in disc golf. So I think that's really driven some of the growth in the women's game. So very exciting to see, and I'm really enjoying it. Something really lovely that our women's global event's doing is once they'd filled out with the women, they needed to run a side event for men as well in order to get enough propagators, because a lot of the women are very new to tournament play. But what they decided to do, which I thought was lovely, was invite the partners of the women first in registration, rather than just opening it up to everybody. So I think they said they had 19 people sign up that way as well. So
that's a great idea.
We're doing
great idea,
especially Carol, who's in chat here, and Zoe as well, doing fantastic things to grow the women's game. So yeah, I'm really, really proud and excited to be part of the community that's helping to grow that, and exciting to see.
Well, because that's a big piece to it, right? Is that it's not only just it's not just having people come out and play in the event, but there has to be an element of I'm going to say psychological and physical safety as well, right? Like, people need to know that they're not going to be berated or attacked based on gender or identity or any of that type of stuff, right? So there also has to be that psychological safety piece as well as the physical safety piece. And so if in the way that you've structured it there with having the partners coming rather than maybe just some random people, it's going to be less intimidating for some other people to sign up for. It's awesome. Wonderful.
Yeah, really good to see. And like I said, fantastic to that we're getting so many positives coming out of that side of the pandemic.
That's really awesome. That's really good. Yeah.
Oh, I did that wrong. I'm clicking all of the wrong things right now. Where's my there we go. Normally I have more complicated buttons and I can switch between my slides better, but because of the restart, I'm operating in single mode. So apologies if I showed the wrong screens just there for a second. But yeah, we're back to non-UK disc golf news banners right now. And let's talk a little bit more about you, Mark, because I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about your journey and stuff, especially this world record attempt. So do you want to go into a little bit of detail about what you were trying to do and what you succeeded to do?
Yeah, so ice hockey is big in Canada here, and it does. The reason I'm mentioning this because it does have it is relevant to the story. So a friend of mine and I were actually watching our local ice hockey team, and it was between periods around Valentine's Day. So similar time of year as where we are right now. It was between periods. Then what had been happening is a friend and I had gone on a lot of sort of disc golf adventures together, where we would go out to a tournament. So where we currently were at the time, currently at the time where I was, there is not a lot of tournaments happening in our local area. And so we were driving down to the States and playing in tournaments in the States. So we'd be driving 5 hours, 8 hours. And I know for the UK and people outside watching being like, that's crazy. And for us, that's totally normal to drive. You just drive 8 hours, play in a tournament, drive back. This is the way it goes. Because again, the way that geographically things are laid out here, it's a little bit different. So we would drive 8 hours, play in a tournament for the weekend, and then drive back home. And along the way, what we would do is we would try to hit up as many disc golf courses as possible. So we were coming home after playing in a tournament, and we have played anywhere between 200 and 300 holes of disc golf in the course of a weekend. And so we were it was in between periods of an ice hockey game, the professional team that we watch here. And we just kind of were like talking of like, I wonder what the world record is for the most courses played in a year. Because we were starting to rack up a lot of courses at that time.
Okay.
And so we looked it up, and the Guinness World Record was 55, set by a gentleman named Larry Kirk. He's a former U.S. Air Force pilot, and he played 50 courses in 50 states in 50 days, which is a crazy feat in and of itself. He played more than 55 courses, but there's a lot of paperwork and administrative stuff that goes into submitting a Guinness record. And so only 55 of his courses actually counted towards the record, but he played much more than that. And so I just said, like, that day I actually went on the Guinness site and was like, application, submit. So I applied, and then I had to wait several weeks for a response back. I got a response back saying, yeah, you can start and attempt your record. So I made and then I started my journey to do that. So I kept playing in tournament play, because actually tournament play made it a lot easier, because there's a PDGA sanctioning that happens with it, and it's a lot more official, and it's really easy to track PDGA rounds or sanctioned rounds to provide the necessary administrative paperwork that Guinness needs for that. But then what I was also doing is the round would finish and I'd drive and go and play 2 or 3 of the local courses as well. And so what I was doing is, for a lot of the journey, I had someone with me, so they would be a witness to it. But then I would actually just find people on the local course and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, and would you be interested in playing the round together with us, or it's at least signing off that you saw us participating and playing by the rules, the PDGA rules for this, and going through that way. It started off that I was just using a minivan to drive back and forth, and it worked out well. But just showing up to a parking lot with a white minivan was kind of like, I don't know, just didn't have the same sort of appeal. And so I actually sold my custom motorcycle and then put a wrap on my van. So my van is completely wrapped in disc golf logos and stickers, and it says like follow the world record journey and all that kind of stuff. So when I show up now to a course, it looks a little bit more official, and people are more willing to be like, oh yeah, I'll connect with you. And it makes it easier to connect and tell a story and talk to people if the van's all covered in decals and stickers and what have you, right? So I've got sponsorships on the van right now. I have, during that time I had Prodigy, because I was a team member with them for 2 years. Right now the van has been just getting switched over actually to Discmania Disc Golf Park, and I still have Eagles Wings on there from previously as well. So nice. Yeah, so that's just been it's been a really fun adventure. A lot of time in the van, sleeping in the van, driving around to different places, playing, like I said, I think it's in 9 different countries now, as well as multiple different states, multiple different provinces within Canada and the US. And it's just been an absolutely incredible journey. So where things are at, right towards the end of my journey, COVID kind of stepped in. And there was conversations between myself and Guinness about how this was going to play out, because I was like, well, I'm not allowed by government restrictions. I'm not allowed to go back out on the courses and play anymore. And they just said, just take a time out. We'll sort of allow you to have like a pause break. Okay. And then once you're officially allowed to go back out and play again, you can do that. So trying to negotiate and work through that with them. It's been a little bit while now. So I think I'm at the point where I'm like, I'll just submit what I have, and then see where we get from there. I've played, it's getting, I'll have to double check officially, but it's in the realm of 150 to 200 courses that I would be submitting to Guinness, that I played in that year, that I have documents for. I photographed every course and almost every hole in every course that I played. I've entered in so many photos on UDisc, it's crazy. I think 3 times now my photos have been featured by UDisc as like the photo for the course or whatever, right? So yeah, but it's been been really awesome.
That's so cool. I've got loads of questions, so yeah, I'm really excited by it.
The most common question that I get is, what's the favorite course you've ever played?
that was on the list, but yeah, okay, go ahead, start with that one.
So I played some of the big courses that people probably have seen on TV. So I played Blue Ribbon Pines and some of the bigger courses like that people would be more familiar with. I've also played some really short, people don't believe me when I tell you this, but I actually have it documented by several witnesses. My buddy and I played a really tiny course in where I think it was in North Dakota. Now I'd have to double check exactly, but I think it was in North Dakota, United States. We played 9 holes in 9 minutes.
Wow.
And so we did it twice, because for the record to count, you have to play 18 holes. So we played two rounds of 9 holes in 18 minutes. And And we were literally throwing and then just jogging up to our disc and throwing it again. But it was a very short course. Every throw was an ace run. It was just super fun when we knew it was going to be that. And so we kind of tried to make a little bit of fun out of it. So we played everything from, like I said, these really fun sort of putt and approach, more family friendly, or even those kind of courses, to like the big, like Blue Ribbon Pine style courses and sort of everything in between. But my favorite course was a course that probably very few people have heard of. It was in France.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was in France, in rural France. There's no other courses really around it. I was trying to find where to play, and I found this course actually through the internet. It wasn't even on UDisc at the time. It's now on UDisc because I put it on there. But they had a shop where you could rent discs or buy discs from. They had bathrooms. They had a driving range. They had a putting area. They had long and short tee pads with turf tees. They had signs at both tees. They had a main tee. Like, it was like a full, proper, amazing disc golf course, and nobody was on it.
Wow. Oh, that sounds incredible.
So my wife and I played. We were the only two on the entire course for that afternoon that we played. I think part of the experience that was enjoyable was it was my first time really experiencing a course that had every piece of that amenity. Because I've been to courses that have had putting areas. I've been to courses that have sales areas. I've been to courses that have had driving ranges, but nothing that put all those pieces together. And then to have it in this kind of like, it seemed like this really strange sort of nowhere place, have like really nice big turf tee pads with signs at the short tee pads and at the long tee pad. And it was really, really well done course. From that perspective, but it also had a little bit of everything. Like, it had long throws, it had short throws, it had uphill throws, it had downhill throws, it had baskets on the edge of cliffs, it had baskets in fields, it just had a little bit of everything. One of the most memorable holes that I've ever thrown was I was standing on a tee pad, and I'm looking, and I'm going to try and maybe make sure I do the conversions right here, because despite the fact that we live in Canada, everything that we get told is in feet because of the influence that we have from the United States.
We have a lot of feet in disc golf here, so yeah. We're quite ambi measurement in disc golf here. So
the hole is only about 70 feet. So I'm standing on the tee pad, and I'm like 70 feet, and I'm looking at the sign, and it shows a straight line, and it's in the trees, but there was enough of a cleared fairway that I'm like, I should be able to see this basket. I don't understand. Is the basket gone? What's the problem here? It's only 70 feet away. So I start walking down the fairway, and I'm like, I can't see this basket. And then I get to about 50 feet, and there's a huge pit, and the basket was in the bottom of the pit.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I've never thrown a hole like this. To that point, I hadn't thrown a hole like that. I've thrown a couple other now since like that, but it was just a really interesting, different way to approach a hole. So that was my favorite course that I've ever played. So yeah.
Wow, that's mad. Someone in chat wants to know what the name of the course in France was.
I will pull this up for you on UDisc. If you can give me a second, I'll pull it up on UDisc for you and let you know what that was.
Oh, I'd love to go play in France. See, you've given us a few of the countries. You said Netherlands and France, USA and Canada. Yeah. So that's 4. You're gonna have to tell me in a little bit what your other 5 are.
So let me think. So Canada, United States, Netherlands, France, Belgium, Switzerland, Germany. I'm trying to think where. I did play. There's a course in Costa Rica. It was a total mess because of all the cactus and everything else and stuff. But there's one course in Costa Rica, and there was a course in. Sorry, did I say Costa Rica? Yes, Costa Rica, and then in Curacao. Again, it's not. Costa Rica is definitely growing, and Eagles Wings is doing some good stuff there. In Curacao, there's one course on the tip of the island, but it's bonkers windy, and there's so many cacti, it's almost unplayable. But yeah, so.
Wow, cool.
I'm just taking a look. I'm gonna pulling it up here on UDisc. The name of that course in France. Disc golf park. Here it is, Disc Golf Park, the Grand Côté. My French, for being Canadian, my French is not as good as it should be. But it's a disc golf park, so it's made by the brand Disc Golf Park,
Sure.
and the Grand Côté.
And where in the country is it?
Uh, it's right sort of in the towards the south middle of the country is where it would be. I'm just gonna pull it up here. If I can view, I think it's my course stats.
We could be fancy, probably.
Info. So if I look at it here, it is. So if I'm gonna pull it up here, so I don't know if this works for you, but this is it here.
Okay.
This is where the course is
Ah,
here.
dead in the center of the country then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
sure.
yeah.
There you go, guys. So anyone who is curious as to where we could find that amazing sounding course, I know I'll have to look that up after the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So personally, I've still only played in the UK and then in Sweden.
Okay.
I'm adding, fingers crossed, travel restrictions permitting. I'm adding Norway this year.
Excellent.
That's gonna be my next one. Gonna do a trip in Norway in the summer, hopefully. But yeah, Sweden was a fantastic disc golf experience. If you ever get a chance to play there, goes highly recommended. And yeah, I was just blown away by just the scale of some of the courses in Sweden.
Well, you got. I mean, ultimately, I'd love to get to Finland. It's kind of a mecca, right? Like, so
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, Finland's a little bit scarier than Sweden. I don't really know why. It just, I guess, it's further away, and the language is even more different. And yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I'm learning a little bit of Norwegian at the moment. That's my hobby.
Oh,
so
awesome.
So hopefully, when I go to Norway, I'll understand a little bit what they're talking about.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, that's
great.
That's definitely exciting. But yeah, traveling for disc golf is just something incredible that it just adds so much to the game, especially if you can play tournaments abroad. I've not done that yet, and that's on my disc golf bucket list for sure. But
yeah,
I'd love to experience disc golf in more different cultures and try it in different ways and see what the local customs are like. And yeah, just really exciting, really great part of the sport.
What's been interesting is there's certain words that don't translate, so they're always spoken in English. So everybody understands Heiser and Heiser, because those are just universal disc golf words. So it's funny to hear somebody speaking in their native tongue, but then say words like Heiser and Anheuser, because there isn't really a proper translation for those words.
Yeah, somebody in Sweden told me that the word disc doesn't translate very well. Right. So they call it frisbee golf in the Scandinavian countries because if you say disc golf, it sounds too much like some kind of swear word or something in their languages. It doesn't translate well. So yeah, I always find that funny. Yeah.
Well, I think that if I believe the main store that sells discs in the Netherlands is called Frisbee Winkel. So like Winkel is the Dutch word for shop. But yeah, Frisbee store. But yeah, it's still referred to that way, right? So
definitely. That's really interesting. I think that it's such a cool part of our game, being able to travel to these different locations and always just end up. Oh yeah, there is a disc golf course here. You have to go a little way out of your way to get there, but yeah, it's going to be something cool to experience every time we go somewhere from now onwards. I am very excited by that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So it's been, I mean, I've met some really interesting characters in the travels. So like I played in the deep south of the United States, and there was definitely some interesting characters that I played with down there for sure. I remember I was on a card more towards like the Midwest of the United States. I was on a card in a tournament play, and the casual kind of like, oh, say, hey, nice to meet you. Like, then the conversation is like, oh, so what do you do, kind of thing. And so there was myself on the card. There was a doctor on the card, and there was a gentleman who was on his way to jail the next day on the card. And he was open with sharing that with us, but it was just a really interesting dynamic how he was just very open, being like, I got to go back to jail. These are things that are going on in my life. And he shared openly with us about that. And I don't want to take light in that, but it was just what I'm wanting to communicate with that is just having sort of like, maybe considering myself as that average kind of Joe person, a sort of a doctor, and then somebody who's going back to prison, all sort of combined together, and going for a walk in the woods for a couple of hours just doesn't necessarily happen normally in society. And so I really love that part of the sport, about how it brings people together that maybe wouldn't get together otherwise. And we had a great time. We absolutely had a great time. It came down to one stroke between myself and one of the other guys on the card for first place in that event. And so it was really fun to be able to do that. I've heard stories of guys who have, were in prison, came out and just said, I need to make some different decisions with my life, and got connected to the sport of disc golf. And started investing time into the community that way. And rather than investing their time into criminal activity, they invested into disc golf. And he's like, it changed my life. He's like, now I have a wife, I have a full-time job, I have a community that loves me and a community that I can pour into. And he's like, it's changed my life. And so there's just been tons of stories like that I've encountered over the journey as well. That's just been really exciting and encouraging to have. So.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. And it's, yeah, like you say, it's just such a unique aspect of the sport that it attracts so many people from different socioeconomic backgrounds and different parts of their life. I play in normal times, I play semi-regularly with people who are over 65 at our local course. I play semi-regularly with people who are under 15, or at least I used to when I lived in Leamington.
Right.
So you just meet so many people that you would never come into contact with in your just day-to-day life. I'm a web developer. I go to cafes and drink overpriced coffee. Like I listen to progressive metal music. Like I would meet a very specific niche of people if I didn't have other outside interests like disc golf. So
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's something that I really love about the sport.
Absolutely.
So Mark, something else I wanted to talk to you about. Last year you ran for the PDGA board.
Yes.
What was the experience of that like? What was the decision-making process and in doing it in the first place, and how was the experience?
So it was really good. Overall, I would say my experience with it was really good. What it came from is coming from a background of working with collegiate and professional sport for many years, having an understanding of athlete needs, both from a professional level, but also from an amateur level, having worked myself, coming up through that as an athlete myself, understanding those different aspects of sport, and then even just understanding the different realms of sport. So having spent time in education as a strength conditioning coach, which is what I did through Preston, and then through the other aspects of which I've done through sport, specifically towards coaching and leadership. And so just really feeling like I had a holistic package that I could present to the sport. And then when I first started the sport a couple of years, it's been more than a couple of years now, a few years ago, just kind of seeing a need for that level of sport administration that I'd seen in other sports or had experienced within other sports, and that it not being there within the sport of disc golf. And so part of that brought me on the journey of becoming the chair for a provincial association for disc golf and working to try to bring on to facilitate sort of growth of the game and an organizational structure for what's happening provincially. So that was my first sort of piece with it. And then as that sort of progressed and worked out, and I moved to somewhere else in Canada, just saw the opportunity to say, hey, there's a board position available. It's being able to run for a board position would allow me to make even greater changes to positively grow the sport, not just necessarily in my local area or my regional area, but actually be able to influence the game from a bigger picture perspective. And so that was what motivated me to be able to do that, and just kind of like taking a look at my resume. So I did a bit of a self check and just said, am I actually qualified to be able to do this based on people who have done it in the past and based on what the needs of the position would be. And then as well, talking to other people who know me and know my experience, and just say, what do you think about this? Is this something that would be appropriate for me to apply for? And I got a lot of support for that. So I put forward my application for that. Not with any sort of egotistical piece in mind of like, I want to be a board member because it needs to feed my ego. I don't need that. I just genuinely want to leave the sport in a better place than when I found it. And when I say that, I don't mean to say that anybody who's in leadership now is doing something wrong. I just wanted to be able to bring the experience and knowledge that I had from my sport experiences dealing with professional sport for many years into disc golf to see if I could help to bring the game and grow the game forward that way. So overall, my experience with it was good. Got to do an interview with PDGA Radio with Steve through that. And then I was really happy with the support. So it was my first time running for a board position. And I was able to gain, I think it was 10% of the votes from on that election, which was quite significant. Finished in 10th place. So there was obviously some big characters on the ballot as well. So we had Nate on the ballot and Will on the ballot, and there were some other big names on the ballot, which are going to get votes because of their recognition within the sport, for either being a player or for the tournament director, or for just even recognition, right? Like that people recognize that name when they're choosing to vote.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's unfortunate what's happened with Will and with his family and his son being in the hospital for such a long period of time, and Will having to, or not having to, but made a choice to step back, which is totally understandable to do so. I'd be curious to know what the voting would have been like had his name not been on the ballot, knowing that he was ultimately ended up stepping away from it, and how that may have affected things. I'm curious to know how that may have played out differently, but it's unknown at this point in time. But like I said, overall, I was happy with it. I would have liked to have done better, obviously, but overall happy with it. I mean, I had been chirped a little bit, and I still get it once in a while saying, "Oh, but Mark, you're below a 900 rated player. Why should we have to listen to you?" And I'm like, in all honesty, I'm like, my ability to throw a frisbee or throw a disc or throw is not correlated directly to my ability to be a sport administrator.
Definitely agree.
They're two totally different things. And so it's interesting just to how people correlate those two, being like, "Oh, you're a 1060 rated player, you must be an amazing sport administrator." Not necessarily. Right? So that was the one downside that I had, is that there was a little bit of pushback and people saying like, "Well, what are you going to be able to contribute to the sport if you're not a great player of the sport?" And my reply was just that, like, my ability to throw a disc isn't correlated in any way or shape or form with my ability to be a sport administrator, right? So
yeah, definitely, completely agree. And there's so many people who are influential in the sport who aren't necessarily great players, and I think that's super critical to being able to grow the game. That you don't have to be an amazing professional athlete in the game to understand kind of the needs of the community and really focus on the targeted areas that you need to improve in order to grow the sport more thoroughly and better. And I completely understand the frustration with that specific aspect.
Look at football. Let's look at football. How many great players have made great coaches?
Yeah.
Not very many.
Not a huge number, no.
So, yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. It's interesting to see, and I think as the game matures, that will become less of an issue. It would be my estimate.
Yeah, it was interesting. I tried to approach the situation a little bit like an electoral campaign. I mean, I'm not a politician, but I did try to invest into the process a little bit like a campaign, with posting videos and posting statements and just trying to be proactive, trying to engage multiple different communities in different ways. And so I did try to approach it from a campaign perspective, and I think that was helpful for doing so. But I think that we're going to see more of that as the sport grows. Like we're over 70. The sport is over 70,000 registered PDJ members. There's obviously way more people than that play the game, but there's, like I said, there's just over 70,000 registered PDJ members, and I don't think it's going to take long for that number to get to 100,000 registered PDJ members. And I think that when we see the board positions coming up, we're going to see more and more of these sport leadership type of strong administrators coming, rather than former players. And that's not I don't mean that as a slight to anybody who's been on the board or currently is on the board. The board is, they brought the sport to where it is, and it has been a lot of former players who have done that. But I think now, as the sport continues to grow, there's going to be more people who are going to be bringing their sport administrative strengths to the sport to be in those leadership positions. So
yeah, and I think we're starting to see that the very early stages of that with the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I think seeing people like Sean Jack coming into doing the marketing and obviously there's a couple of other big names. Todd Rainwater doing the financing and owning the Disc Golf Pro Tour from behind the scenes these days, rather than having one person up front who was a player who then became a TD and then started the tour. And yeah, we're starting to see the more multifaceted business-based approach to that. And I think the last year's growth in the Disc Golf Pro Tour has really shown that works much better than the way it was working before. And it's going to be really interesting to see that be the sort of pioneering aspect from the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and then that grow into the PDGA, and see what happens with the national tour as well. And what can happen with that, which kind of brings me on nicely to something else that I had on the list. Something I was interested in your views as someone who's played in Europe and someone who's played in the US and Canada. With the Disc Golf Pro Tour having their first event over here in Europe this summer, fingers crossed. Do you think that that's something that we'll see more of from the Disc Golf Pro Tour, trying to make it more international?
Absolutely.
Or do you think it's destined to be more primary as the US tour?
So, as a Canadian, I would like to see it move outside of the US. As a fan of the sport, I would like to see it move outside of the US. So I'll address the question in a couple different ways here. So it's interesting to me when I see things like in sports like what you guys would call American football, so NFL football, where a team wins, they win the Super Bowl, and then they call themselves the world champions. Or when a baseball team wins and they call themselves the world champions from the MLB, or when a team wins in the NBA basketball and call themselves world champions. And I understand the frame of reference that they're talking about when they say that. But it's always a bit comical to me, because it's like, well, no, we have professional football here in football, this kind of throw ball, professional throw ball here in Canada as well. Do we need to maybe take the team that won in your league and the team that won in our league and play off to see who's maybe the North American champion? And I know that like there's teams in other parts of the world, like, so this idea of crowning yourself a world champion, but then only playing within the United States, I mean, I get their frame that they're talking about and that this is the most elite version of the sport as far as the professional league goes, but you're not really a world champion because you haven't played outside of the United States, right? And so for myself, it bothers me a little bit, especially the past couple of years when they're like world champion, and I was like, there's 3 non-Americans in the whole event, right? Like world champion, maybe there's a lot of really good disc golfers in other parts of the world, but maybe due to financial restrictions, they're not able to travel. Maybe due to things like COVID restrictions, they're not able to travel. And so that's just my semantics behind it, and in approaching that. And I would like to see it truly actually be a holistic, more of a world piece. And I think that having events in Europe and events in Canada and events in other places is going to lead itself to be more like a disc golf world tour type piece.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to see that myself. And I think something that the PDGA can do once they've grown a little bit, and once there's more sponsorship funding, the way that Disc Golf Pro Tour are bringing it, is I'd love to see some more international events be Worlds qualifiers, and I'd love to see there be bursary packages for those people who win those events to travel if they're not part of the States. So let's say, hypothetically, the prize pool keeps growing at the rate it did this year. 3 years from now, it might be that the PDGA can afford to have 5 tournaments in 5 different continents where the prize is a £5,000 bursary to travel to the States for Worlds. And I think things like that would be huge to be able to get some of the players over to be able to come and compete, obviously after COVID. And it'd be fantastic to see, I think.
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely, 100%. I know that we're working on that, trying to see if we can logistically work on that in Canada on a smaller scale. For example, like I said, Canada's a very large country, and so what we're looking at doing is having provincial championships for all the different sort of places within Canada, but then having a national championship, but having the winner of each provincial area have their prize. So your prize for winning the provincial championship, rather than here's a disc and here's some other pieces, your prize is that your entry fee and your travel to the national championships in Canada is paid for from your province as part of part of the championship. And so we're trying to see if there's ways to logistically make that work. there's a couple hurdles that we have to deal with to get through that kind of stuff right now, because Canada is very big, and somebody who's traveling from the East Coast to the East Coast isn't paying nearly the same as somebody traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast. So like it's a 7 to 8 hour flight from one coast to the other in Canada, right? So yeah, about that probably.
Yeah,
about that. Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Yeah, it might be about that. Maybe 6 hours. It's pretty far anyway. So just trying to figure out like the cost that would be attached to that, and then we're trying to also figure out how to work it through with the way the current rules are written for PDGA pricing, because if we wanted to do it as an amateur event where we sent our top amateur players to a national championship, the way the current things are that they have to get paid out in sort of pricing.
Yes.
Can we have the pricing be a plane ticket? And there's kind of not really clear sort of ways of articulating how that works through the guidelines right now. So we're trying to see if we can figure out how to navigate those in an appropriate way.
Yeah, definitely something interesting, and something that we don't really have to worry about so much here in the UK.
No, but if you're trying to, even if we wanted to do an amateur event where you took your top, like say you took your top MA1 and FA1 player and wanted to send them to like an amateur championships for like if we had an world amateur championships, how is the funding that's coming from the UK to pay for that going over? How is it contributing towards amateur players, right? So
yeah, that would be interesting to find out actually. Something that is really interesting, not for amateurs really, but something that's really interesting over here is we've started to see pro teams being formed.
Okay.
We have several sort of disc golf shops or manufacturers. We've got Disc Golf UK, obviously. We've got London Disc Golf Community. We've got Ace Disc Golf. They're starting to sort of have sponsored players. I don't think they're getting salaries or anything, but they're getting merch and clothing and support to travel and various things are starting to sort of slowly creep into the UK community, which is really cool to see. Awesome. And I know it's going to be a great opportunity for one of our best young players, Noah Smithson, is going to be able to travel to Europe and play in some of the European events this year thanks to his sponsors. Awesome. So it is starting to happen over here. I would say we're probably at least 5 years, if not 10 years, behind where the US is in terms of progress. But it's nice that it's starting to kick off. And if we get the growth we've had last year, every year for the next 5 years, we'll be in a much stronger place. Definitely, we'll need many more courses. Let's just say that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, Mark. For the final topic of the show, I give you a little bit of warning, but Desert Island Discs, the final segment of the podcast. I'm going to ask you. You're going to be playing a disc golf tournament on a desert island. It's a magical course, so you won't be losing any of your discs, but you're only allowed to bring 3: 1 putter, 1 mid-range, and 1 driver. There's going to be a mix of holes. There's going to be some long ones, some short ones, some water carries, some trees. What discs are you going to be bringing?
Oh man, like I said, I knew this question was coming, and I still struggle with giving you an answer for it. Oh man. Well, so for my putter, I would have to say it's going to be a PA3 from Prodigy in 300 soft plastic. Okay. That's the putter that I've been using for the last couple of years. It's the putter that I feel the most comfortable with. So that's what I would be using for my putter.
Yeah, that's a really nice disc actually. I like a PA3, and I like a softer plastic on my putters as well. So
I'm really it's in a bit of an aside, but I ordered some of the Loft putters. Okay. The Loft hydrogen putters. So I'm really curious to what those are like when they show up. I'm excited for those to arrive. So.
I know some of my my other guests who I've had on have ordered them as well, so I'm interested to see as well. I'm doing a disc buying ban for 2021. I'm not buying any discs. I've got plenty behind me, as you can probably see, racks of them here. But yeah, I'm doing a lot of trading. That's my my thing for this year. But yeah, I'll have to see if I can try some ones. So go on then.
I've been trying to do the same thing. I was with Prodigy for 2 years, so I have a lot of Prodigy discs. So I've been trying to trade those away and bring in Discmania as I'm working together with them more right now. So that's been exciting. So with that said, the driver that comes to mind for me that I would probably it's tough, because if you don't want something too, or say, you know what, I'm going to say this. I'm gonna go with an Enigma. So
Okay.
or driver. Now it's not the I would probably want to say a more overstable driver. Generally, I would go with a more overstable driver than that. I really like the DD3. It fights the wind fairly well, but I can also hyzer it if I need to, or I can make it do what I kind of need it to do. The Enigma is a little bit. It's definitely not as overstable. It does have a lot of forward glide, which I like about it. But it would allow me to have the opportunity to play some other shots. And if it was really windy out, I could always just put it on a steep hyzer and know that it'll still fight it. So that's probably the driver that I would take, actually.
Cool. I
really like that because it allows me a little bit of understability if I need it, right? So if I want to have some tighter shots, it allows me a little bit of some understability if I need to try to work a bit of a straighter line. And then for a mid-range, man, that is a really tough one. I mean, it's really hard to say no to a truth. They're just such a reliable disc. I haven't bagged one in a few years because, like I said, I've been with Prodigy, and now with my work that I'm doing with Disc Golf Park, I've made the choice to switch over to Discmania as their partner companies. But I did bag a truth for a long time, and I really enjoy it. I know a lot of people still carry that disc in their bag. Like when I think about it, I'm like maybe an M3. Maybe like an MD3, but I don't know. I think a truth would maybe be that mid-range that I would bag, because I think it'd allow me to, again, work the shots that I would probably need to be able to work if I was only able to carry 3 discs. So
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Cool.
So.
Well, good answers. I will maybe potentially make an appearance on my Instagram. I back in the day when this podcast had my wife being the social media manager, and she was taking care of my Instagram for me. We always used to get them posted up every week and stuff.
Okay.
But for somebody who works on building mobile apps, I'm incredibly technologically illiterate when it comes to Instagram, and there's something about Instagram which I just cannot figure out. So we'll see.
Okay.
We'll definitely see.
Yeah. Thank you for your time today. It's been really fun and really enjoyable. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm pushing all the wrong buttons again.
That's okay.
There we go. We made it back to the actual screen. Thank you so much for coming on, and apologies for the technical difficulties. I'm going to blame Facebook, even though it probably wasn't. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to hear more again in the future. And if you make it over to the UK, we'll definitely have to get around in.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you everyone in the chat, and have a good night, and I'll see you for the auction next week. Peace.
All right, bye-bye.